Earlier this year, I took you inside Wellington Zoo's food hub to learn more about how they cater to such a variety of animals' dietary requirements. Well, have you ever wondered about how they treat so many critters of different shapes and sizes? Let's head back in for an exclusive look at the zoo's animal hospital, Te Kōhanga, or the Nest.
These are all of our patients. Fiona's going to pick one. Which one did you say of a crop wash today?
I've got the kiriru with the crop wash and aroha.
So the majority of the birds that you see at the moment, I think all of them, all four, have suffered from window strike. So,
Te Kōhanga, also known as the Nest, is Wellington Zoo's animal hospital. In addition to zoo animals like lions, tigers and giraffes, the hospital also treats over 400 injured native animals each year, which it then helps to rehabilitate and release back into the wild.
And you can see that all of these guys have chest injuries, along with a few other things as well.
And I imagine that limits their ability to fly then as well.
Exactly. So we usually get them when a member of the community finds them in their garden not flying, and fortunately they bring them into us and we can assess them.
Meet Fiona Isham, one of Te Kōhanga's veterinarians.
My name is Fiona Isham. I'm one of the vets here at the Nest Te Kōhanga at Wellington Zoo.
And team leader and vet nurse, Shanna Rose.
And my name's Shanna Rose. I'm the team leader here at Te Kōhanga and I'm a vet nurse.
In the hospital this week when we visit are 4 kiriru, each crash victims brought in to be looked over by the zoo's team, a Cape petrel and a kororoa, or little penguin, named Aroha. You might be able to hear the centre's drainage system, which helps keep the facilities sterile and clean, but is a little noisy.
So each of these birds has a full health check. They get their initial exam when they first come in, and then once they're stable, we'll do a full health check under anaesthesia, and that's because they're all wild. They don't like being handled, and nobody's going to be able to make a bird stay still for an x-ray. And then we assess whether they've got any fractures going on, and then our vets decide on a treatment plan. A lot of the time it's rest and pain relief and supportive feeding and fluids, so we're really hopeful for all of these birds that they'll eventually be released back out into the wild. So that's our goal for every patient that we see here, if we're able to treat them, to get them straight back out into the wild so they can contribute to the wild populations.
Is there a particular time of year that kiriru or other birds are vulnerable to this kind of strike? Or?
Such a good question. There's a couple different times of year. So this time of year the kiriru are starting to breed, and they're not really thinking about much other than the ladies. I don't know if you've seen them flying before, but they do these amazing aerial displays trying to charm each other, and also a little bit of territorial fighting and things, and then they can run into trouble. The other time that we get a big influx is sort of after spring, when we get all the fledglings, and they're pretty klutzy birds, and that's when they run into trouble. The other problem that we see when they've hit windows is that they often get picked up by a cat or a dog. So yeah, they can end up with a few more problems other than fractures.
You've got the 4 kiriru. 4 kiriru in here.
And we've got one in an aviary who's getting ready for release, so we pop them in a bigger aviary so that they've got room to fly around. They need to be flight strength and waterproof before they go back out in the wild. We've also got a little Cape petrel who came into us. You might be able to see him, he's having a wee swim at the moment, isn't he? So he came into us emaciated. We suspect storm blown, so with all the inclement weather we tend to get a lot more seabirds in. And he has also got anemia. So he's having investigations at the moment. He's had his full health check. He's having bloods regularly to check if he's improving. He's a bit of a mystery so far. But yeah, he's doing really well. Other than that, we're hopeful that we'll be able to pull him through. And again, at this time of year, we see a lot of seabirds that come in. They haven't been able to find enough food, or a storm's made them fly off course and they can't get back up off the ground. The other patient that we've got in is Aroha, who's a little penguin, and we can show you him a little bit later as well. So he's just in with us. He originally came from Waiheke, where he was abandoned as a chick with his sibling. So a wonderful rehab community helped to hand rear them, and then when they tried to release them, Aroha decided not to go. So they tried very, very hard to get him back out to sea, and he's refused. So he's probably here to join our penguin troop. We're just at the moment investigating a few different problems that he's got. So he's gone in for a CT scan, he's had all of his x-rays, he's had bloods. So yeah, we're just making sure that he's nice and fit to go back out into section if we can get him there.
The first job on this morning's rounds is giving the keraru a crop wash. And if you're wondering what that is, you're not alone. Fiona will explain it later though.
But I thought what we might do first is to just treat our keraru who wants his crop wash. So each of our patients has a unique number for them, so I'm looking for 40718, which is always written on their house as well. And every patient has their own towel. We weigh all of our patients every day. It's really important to keep an eye on how they're doing. We also measure their food intake.
The clinic room looks much like any other vet's clinic. A sterile white room with large cabinets filled with medical supplies and a bench for working with the animals. A large window in the corner allows the public to observe. The keraru enclosure is covered in fresh cut foliage and darkened green sheets to reduce stress on the birds.
Alright, so once we get our bird out, we make sure that their face is covered. And we wrap them up snug as a bug on the scales. So he weighs 610 today, which I can then put on his chart and look at how that's tracking. So I can see he was 610 yesterday and 610 the day before. So holding his own, and then we just leave them wrapped up nice and tight in that towel while we service their house. The next thing we do is look at what they've eaten overnight. This is what we feed the keraru. We call it keraru mix. We make it here. It's basically a mix of fruit, veg and grain. So I need to weigh that. It doesn't look like he's eaten that much. There was 120 grams in there. I've thrown away 95. He could have eaten up to 25 grams, but we've got to allow a little bit for dehydration. So I'll put down 25 grams question mark.
Record keeping is an incredibly important part of the animal care process, especially when they have so many animals coming through the centre each week.
It's absolutely everything. If we were trying to remember what's going on with, 4 keraru who are really similar, I wouldn't be able to tell you this afternoon what happened this morning, I need those written records. Shannon's just got a fecal sample that we're going to look at in the lab as well. And so what I'm going to do is I'll do a crop wash, which is where we put some fluid into the crop, some sterile saline, to then look at what kind of cells are living inside the crop.
For our listeners who might not know, what is the crop?
Yeah, crop.
And myself as well.
Fair enough. So a crop, mammals don't have one, so it's fair enough that you don't know what that is. It is a outpouching of the esophagus, so the tube that goes from the mouth to the stomach, and birds have it there, so it's basically like a storage pouch for food. So a lot of the time there's nothing in it, and then when they eat, they can eat tons all at once, especially when we feed aroha. You'll see we'll put in heaps of fish, and it's like, where did all that fish go? It all just sits in the crop, and then it comes through to the tummy sort of when it's ready. So they can eat a lot really fast and then go away to somewhere that's safe, like high up in a tree, and think about digesting that food over time. So, looks like we are nearly ready. Just always check what medications we need as well. This patient isn't on any medication, so that's easy. So then I get my fluids. I've got 2 kinds. So this one here is the one for the crop wash. It's just saline, so the same kind of thing that you get in a IV bag. This is human grade intravenous fluid that we use for this purpose. And the second one is Vitrate, which is like Powerade for birds. So a bit of glucose, a bit of electrolytes. It's mostly water. So that's what we give them. Most of our birds get this twice a day. As they get healthier, they get it once a day. And when they're in the aviary, they don't get it at all. All right, so I do the crop wash first. So I take my patient's head, tucked up nice and tight, open wide. Oh, wait, no. Pop that tube down, make sure it's in the right place. In goes the fluid, then I leave it where it is. Give that crop a little palpation, give a massage, and then I suck out what I can. So what's coming back now is the fluid that went in, plus cells from the crop. I don't need to get it all out, that'll be fine for a sample. And then I put in our Vitrate. He won't need all of this because he's already got some fluid in there from what I've just done. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going go straight to bed.
We take a feces sample and send it, along with the crop wash, to be tested in the lab next door, where Fiona checks to see if there are any parasites in the samples. The keraru gets the all clear though. Fiona's journey to becoming a zoo veterinarian has taken a slightly unusual path.
My path is a little atypical. So I've been here for 2.5 years. So I've been a vet for about 9 years or so before I came here, and I've done all sorts. So I did companion animal cats and dogs practices at first, and then I did an ophthalmology internship. So it's a year of just eyes. And then I did 2 years of emergency work at a 24/7 emergency hospital for cats and dogs over in Australia. After that, I did some teaching for vet nurses, and then I did some animal welfare research and advocacy, and then I found myself here. So I've done a bit of everything. I wouldn't say that was the typical or like recommended path to get here. There are probably more efficient ways to go about it, but that's what happened to me.
And how does it compare working in a zoo where you have so many different kinds of animals, particularly a lot of our native species as well?
Completely different. So in like sort of day-to-day community practice, you do sometimes see some natives, but generally if you have somewhere to send them, you send them there for the best care. We have a lot of specialised equipment and special skills that you just don't use in cats and dogs. So we see so many more, native wildlife patients than I ever did before, and it's completely different.
Each animal presents their own challenges. Some make better patients than others. Luckily, the facilities are well equipped.
We are set up here to deal with all of our native species, and then everything within the zoo could come here to the nest with the exception of the giraffes, who are just too big. So we can go to the giraffes if we need anything, but every other species can come in here. So we have out in the halls big weigh scales on the floor, so it's like built into the floor. So if we've got, let's say, an anaesthetised lion on a gurney and we want to know what he weighs, we can zero the gurney, roll the gurney and the lion onto there, and then we know what they weigh. Things like our sheep walked down here this morning to use those scales. They have good manners and can come in. But yeah, we're pretty set up to deal with most things. Like the table, sometimes we have to put on an extension, like a second table next to it for our larger patients, but most of them fit pretty well.
What animal do you find most challenging to work with? Is it a kind of a size thing or a personality thing?
Oh, it is all of the above. All of our patients have different personalities. Some of those personalities are bitey. If that bird has then got a pointy beak that's really sharp and they're kind of big, I'm thinking about some of our really naughty shags who kind of put their head back and go pop like that. And they can be a bit challenging to deal with, but they're quite fun as well. Like we like the ones with a bit of fire. And the patients who are really, really small are really challenging as well, just in terms of handling, and there's only so much blood you can get out of them, there's only so much you can do. That can be a bit awkward as well.
There's no such thing as a typical week at Te Kōhanga.
There isn't really a typical week. So every morning we start with bird treatments like you saw, and every afternoon we finish with bird treatment. So it's a bird treatment sandwich, and then in the middle we do whatever needs doing with our zoo patients, whatever needs doing with our hospitalised patients. So yesterday, 3 of the birds you've seen this morning got general anaesthetics in here on this table for x-rays and bloods and physical exams. And we deal with obviously any new birds that come in, which some days we get no new birds, some days we get like 6 new birds, you just don't know.
It's time to check on Aroha, the little penguin.
What we need, check Aroha's chart, make sure we're all prepared. I'm done with that one. So I can see this morning that Aroha needs to be weighed, needs to have some vitrate, some Sporanox, which is a preventative fungal medication. Seabirds are really prone to getting fungal infections in the hospital, something called aspergillus, which lives all around us, and when you're healthy you can handle it, but when our seabirds are a bit run down, they're more likely to get sick from that. So we just give them that to keep them nice and healthy, and he needs a swim.
Fiona is mindful of wearing gloves to prevent the natural oils on her hands from damaging Aroha's waterproofing in his feathers. We move from the clinic room to the paddling pool area where Aroha can enjoy a swim.
Aroha will be in his night house, lock the door because occasionally he runs out into the pool. Off with the lid. Hello. And again using my towel. Hi, you're so cute. Pop from the box.
Like the kiriru, he gets put on the scales to be weighed and gets a little bit of vitrate.
7.5. Let me take a look. As Aroha's a longer term patient, he doesn't get weighed every day. So just looking back to a few days ago, and he's gained weight since then, which is always nice to see. So I need to bring all of my goodies. Vitrate like the other birds get. Oh, fish, towel, penguin.
Happy with the progress he's making, it's time for a feed.
So some species, like shags and mollyhawks, we can just put the fish on the ground and they'll eat it. Penguins never do. You can leave them there, they can starve to death before they'll eat fish from off the ground. So we always have to put Aroha's food into his mouth. Hello.
And what happens to the wildlife when they've been treated?
So the aim with all of the native wildlife that we treat is for them to be released back, but exactly what they need depends on the species and how long they've been here. So for our kiriru, for example, if a kiriru comes in and has a really minor injury and we can release them after 5 days, as long as they have full feathering, we can pretty much just pop them back out into the wild because they won't have lost a lot of fitness. But many of our patients have orthopedic injuries or have damaged or missing feathers, which mean they can't fly or they're not waterproof, and so sometimes we have to pop them in our aviaries. So our aviaries are like a big space, it's open to the air through a mesh, and we only need to handle them sort of every 4 days or so to clean the aviary out, where those birds are basically sitting, waiting, flying to build up a little bit of fitness and growing feathers, working on their waterproofing. Once they're getting rain on them, that helps their waterproofing too.
I was speaking to veterinarian Fiona Esam at Wellington Zoo's Te Kōhanga Animal Hospital. I also spoke to team leader Shanna Rose.
So, Janina, how are those kiriru doing now?
You'll be pleased to hear they were all released back into the wilds of Wellington, and the Cape Petrel was also released into the Cook Strait with the help of maritime police.
And how about Aroha, the little penguin?
He was unable to return to the wild, but he's found a new home with the zoo's resident Kororoa colony. You can find some photos and videos of those patients being treated on our website, rnz.co.nz/countrylife.